a race of pre-dynastic and semi-divine beings, which according to the beliefs of the ancient Egyptians, had ruled thousands of years before the pharaohs of Egypt. This theory is consistent with the hypothesis that an ancient intelligent species, like the Anunnaki, ruled the earth. In fact, throughout the paper, he openly references the Anunnaki as an active threat to the region. In 2017, Dr. Rida Abdel Halim, a senior Egyptian archaeologist, published a paper for the Wisdom of Nations Foundation, a Polish think tank operating out of Warsaw, stating that he had found a second giant Sphinx hidden in plain sight on Cairo's Giza Plateau. The rock formation that vaguely looks like a sitting animal is 246 feet high with arms that extend over 50 feet, almost perfectly matching the size and shape of the original Great Sphinx. For a while, Halim's findings remained largely unknown to the international archaeology community, until October of this year, 2021, when he decided to talk to the Egyptian media about his discovery. Speaking to Cairo Live, Halim said that he has known of the location of this statue since 1986, based on research done with archaeologists from El Zaazit University. However, his claims were immediately shot down by several high-ranking Egyptian archaeologists, stating that his discovery is completely without merit and serves no purpose except to gain media clout. This is not the first time archaeologists have made somewhat credible claims, not just about a second Sphinx existing on the plateau, but also about an underground city that can be accessed via the first Sphinx. Like Halim, these claims were completely discredited by both the Egyptian and global archaeological communities, sometimes aggressively. So in this episode of The Mysterious Middle East, we will ask, why is there so much passionate opposition to archaeological theories that challenge the mainstream narrative of the history of Egypt? And what dark secrets could potentially be hidden beneath the Giza Plateau? Our adventure begins in 1935, when the British archaeologist Edward Armitage reported to the Sunday Express that he had found a lost city beneath the Giza Plateau, dated back to 4,000 years ago. Here, he described a city that was way more advanced than it should be, showing evidence of a perfect drainage system, tower planning, and civic organizing that would not be seen in Europe until the 1700s. Apparently, the ancient Egyptians were not just skilled pyramid builders, but city builders with a modern infrastructure to match. And according to some fringe archaeologists, access to this city could come via the Great Sphinx. Discoveries like this, as well as Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and even the theorized city of Atlantis, are all locations that could potentially prove that ancient man was way more advanced than what is currently agreed upon. However, in the decades since Armitage published his findings in the Sunday Express, his integrity has been questioned, with skeptics labeling his report as exaggerated and uninformed. While it may be necessary to sometimes dismiss or downplay alternative theories that lack any tangible substance, can that be truly said about Armitage, or two very recent examples presented by the Egyptian Egyptologists Bassem al-Shamma and Dr. Rida Abdel Halim, the latter of which we mentioned in the intro of this episode. Although Shamma and Halim do not talk about lost cities, they do raise some very interesting questions regarding the strange and somewhat anomalous existence of a second Sphinx. We will discuss in more detail the supernatural implications of Armitage's 1935 claims in the final part of this episode. But first, let's focus on more controversial issues of the present day. In early November 2021, a minor media spat between Dr. Halim and the famed Zehi Hawes, the former Egyptian Minister of Antiquities, erupted when Halim reported to Cairo Live his findings, where he states that he had irrefutable evidence of a second Great Sphinx in Giza, matching the size and scale of the original. It should be noted that nearly every other week you will find a random person appear on a random blog, YouTube channel, or be a guest on History Channel's Ancient Aliens, saying that they have proof that XYZ instead of ABC happened in ancient Egypt. And of course, be rightly ignored by the Egyptian authorities because their voice holds no academic weight. However, this was not the case with Dr. Halim. Within days of his announcement to the media, not only did Zahi Hawass somewhat aggressively strike back at Dr. Halim, refuting his claims, but several other officials weighed in to discredit his research. You see, Dr. Halim is no ordinary individual. He is a senior Egyptologist and archaeologist who, as of 2021, works as the Director of Public Relations for the Giza Pyramids District at the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. Although his research is yet to be peer-reviewed, on the Wisdom of Nations Foundation website, he published numerous photos of what appeared to be a severely weathered-down rock formation in the shape of a sphinx. Within these pictures are the formation's measurements that almost completely match up to that of the famous Great Sphinx. Speaking to Al Monitor, one of the most prominent English-language Arab-American news organizations, Zahi Hawass quickly issued a response saying that Halim's work is, and I quote, completely not true, and even questioned the validity of his statement that Al Zaazit University were even involved. Hawass further added that during the many years he was managing the Giza Pyramids area, he saw no evidence of another statue that has the scale of the Sphinx there. In order to understand why the existence of a second Sphinx on the Giza Plateau is such a controversial issue, we first have to understand the conspiracies surrounding the first Sphinx that we all know of. Until today, no one has been able to date its age accurately, as there are no written records or mentions of it. The most controversial dating of the monument comes via two Ukrainian geologists, and I apologize for butchering their names, Manichev Vyacheslav from the Institute of Environmental Geochemistry and Alexander G. Parkomenko from the Institute of Geography of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine, argue that the erosion on the Sphinx is not the work of wind and sand, but rather the work of water in a time when Giza was flooded. They argue that the erosion pattern on the Sphinx looks like the erosion pattern on the Black Sea coast, which means we would need a water level of at least 160 meters higher than the current sea level. And this happened over 750,000 years ago. Currently accepted evolutionary patterns indicates that humans did not exist during that time. So who or what built the Sphinx? Most archaeologists believe that the Sphinx is roughly only between 5 and 10,000 years old. Some even suggest that its face is believed to represent the pharaoh Khafra, helping to date the statue. Yet the size and proportion of the carving suggests that the head had been altered or modified to look like Khafra sometime after it was originally carved, indicating that whatever face it had before might have existed long before this pharaoh's reign. So keeping in mind the wildly different dates associated with the construction of this monument, could the Sphinx have originally represented an alien being that came to Earth some hundreds of thousands of years ago, as the ancient astronaut theory proposes? Well, according to the History Channel, yes. And as cool as that would be, let's first look for a more grounded answer. Clues can be found via the work the Egyptologist Bassem Shamma had published over a decade ago. In 2007, Shamma famously proposed that the Sphinx was an Egyptian deity that had been built next to another Sphinx, which has since vanished without a trace. Shamma states that the idea of two Sphinxes is more in line with ancient Egyptian beliefs, which were mainly based on duality. To back up his claims, there was once twin Sphinx on the plateau, Shamma came with some pretty hefty receipts using technology developed by the American Aerospace Agency and NASA. With this technology, he analyzed the density of the geological layers that make up the ground and the monuments of the Giza Plateau. Here, he proved almost without a doubt that at one point in history, a second Sphinx existed. While it is common for such crazy ideas to be suppressed or ignored, on this occasion, it just could not be denied. Still, Shamma effectively did what Halim has yet to do: silence his critics with solid facts before he can even be challenged, especially by critics like Zahi Hawass. Among the most extraordinary claims connected with the Sphinx is that the mythical Hall of Records is located right below this mysterious ancient monument. It is said that the Hall of Records holds the key to understanding our civilization and the real history of humanity. Furthermore, according to Tony Bushby, a fragmented Sumerian cylinder seal tells a story that could easily be interpreted as having taken place in Giza, involving a statue that had a lion's head with a tunnel entrance hidden by the sand. Cylinder seals were a type of ancient-day Mesopotamian legal document containing concise pieces of information, typically used for administrative purposes. However, archaeologists have also uncovered seals that relay social, cultural, and historical pieces of information. Of course, the seal Bushby speaks of in his paper, referring to a statue with a lion's head, is a reference to the Sphinx. Here, he states that in the ancient Sumerian cylinder seals, this hidden city beneath modern-day Cairo is also home to the Anunnaki. To some people, the Anunnaki are ancient demonic deities that are waiting to rage hell on modern-day Earth via supernatural means, while to others, they are alien beings who have only been misinterpreted as ancient religious figures. However, these aliens also have the potential to rage hell on Earth, but this time via technological means. Within Islam, there is no concept of the Anunnaki, although if such powerful entities matching their description were ever to emerge, they would likely be classified as jinn, spiritual entities made of fire. However, that does not remove the concept of aliens from their equation either. Whatever the case may be, it would probably suck to be a resident of Cairo if these beings were ever to return, because they would be on the front line. Exactly which seal indicates that a home for these beings exists beneath Giza is unclear, as Bushby remains vague on his details, at least in the paper of his which we studied. But despite this vagueness, there are real links between the mythologies of the ancient Egyptians and the Sumerians. According to Helen Cantor in her 1952 book, Further Evidence of Early Mesopotamian Relations with Egypt, it is believed that the cylinder seals were introduced from ancient Iraq to Egypt during the Naqada period, between 3500 and 3200 BC. Gaston Maspero, a French Egyptologist known for popularizing the term Sea Peoples, in an 1881 paper, wrote in the book The Dawn of Civilization, the Sphinx could have existed since the days of the followers of Horus, a race of pre-dynastic and semi-divine beings, which according to the beliefs of the ancient Egyptians, had ruled thousands of years before the pharaohs of Egypt. This theory is consistent with the hypothesis that an ancient intelligent species, like the Anunnaki, ruled the earth. In fact, throughout the paper, he openly references the Anunnaki as an active threat to the region. Whatever the case may be, history has repeatedly shown that when information remains hidden and suppressed, alternate theories will ultimately appear to fill in those gaps. And if those theories are not addressed civilly, then situations like the rumors surrounding the Sphinx will eventually appear. Why is there such a push to maintain a single narrative about the history of ancient Egypt that spans from the 1930s to the dawn of the 2030s will probably never be answered in our time. There is a lot more to the riddle of the Sphinx and the controversy surrounding the archaeology of the Giza Plateau, but there's only so much we can cover in one video. So, what do you think? What theories do you know that should be addressed? And do you believe any of them? I myself am an Egyptian and have a ton of theories about the Sphinx and many other ancient mysteries. So sound off in the comments, like and subscribe. As always, my name is Hossein, a senior patron of this channel, and until next time, stay curious and take care.